2367 Lake of Lava. Your wounds are quite severe. Sunny was sprawled on the floor, his breathing labored. Kai had assumed his human form and was standing above him, a concerned expression on his face. His worry was appreciated, but entirely misplaced, since there was no real need to fret. The wounds looked worse than they were. Surely, the sight of mangled flesh, with bone visible in the deeper tears, was disconcerting. And his soul was hurt, too. But Sunny was supreme. After all, a bit of damage like that was not going to kill him. In fact, these wounds were going to heal rapidly. But not rapidly enough to be healed completely before the next battle, which was unfortunate. The obsidian wasps he had lost would not repair themselves in time, either. The spell he had woven went up in flames with the volcano. Sunny let out a sigh. Really, he had suffered quite a loss in this battle. Well, I did fight a cursed demon, you know. The battle against the wolf had been truly frightful. Now that it was behind him, Sunny could truly appreciate the fact that he had somehow managed to last this long against a fallen deity of that class. Kai himself was battered and exhausted, but most of all, he seemed bewildered. A cursed demon, yes. I still can't believe that you killed it so quickly. Sunny let out a hoarse laugh, then Winston thought better of it. Quickly, it might have felt quick to you, but I had been wrestling that fiend for an eternity. It wasn't quick at all, far from it. Time itself had fallen victim to their battle, so measuring how long exactly he had been trading blows with the wolf was a fool's errand. Groaning, he turned his head and glanced at the 3 jade figurines standing on the altar, as if wanting to make sure that the feral fiend was truly dead. Then, Sunny sighed again. You've done well yourself, though. How many saints are there who can boast battling a cursed beast? Kai smiled. Not too many, I hope. By which he meant that he hoped that as few saints as possible would find themselves in a position to fight a cursed nightmare creature, naturally, not that there would be few who could match his glory. That guy. Kai's gaze shifted back to Sunny's bloodied form. Kneeling beside him, the archer spoke firmly. And, obeying his command, both Sunny's body and soul started to heal faster. It was not quite as effective as what an actual healer could do, especially not a Transcend ENT1, but still quite miraculous. Sunny let out a weak laugh. Wow, you are a real magician. Then, he closed his eyes. I'll rest now, if you don't mind. I am a bit spent. As Kai nodded tiredly, beads of sweat running down his soot-covered face, Sunny released his manifestation and turned around into a shadow. Since his soul was wounded as well, not just his physical form, the pain did not disappear, but at least he did not have to feel the damn heat anymore. Damnation, why couldn't I have become the snow tyrant, instead? Enjoying the cool embrace of shadows, Sunny slowly collected his thoughts. The battle might have been over, but that did not mean that the death game was. He had to start preparing for the adversary's next move. First things first, now that dawn had run its course and the sun was climbing the vast dome of the sky, Sunny allowed his shadow sense to spread across what remained of the volcano. There wasn't much left, really, just an enormous stone bowl containing a lake of lava, and the shrine of truth floating in its middle. Sunny did not try to explore how deep the lake went, since that would mean catching a glimpse of what hid beneath the clouds. For now, it was enough for him to know what the next battlefield he would have to fight on looked like. He was sufficiently certain that all 3 of the snow abominations were dead, but it was a relief to confirm that no trace of them was left. Sunny remained motionless for a while, coming to terms with the fact that he had, indeed, won. He had slain the wolf. That primordial fiend was the most powerful adversary he had killed to date. The battle against the ancient fallen deity had without a doubt been dreadful and tremendously harrowing, and yet it had not been as desperate as Sunny expected it to be. But that was simply because he was too used to utter desperation. In truth, the battle had ended the way it had because he entered it sufficiently prepared. He had understood the nature of the adversary and devised a strategy according to that knowledge, executing the plan splendidly. The beast had died in the hunter's trap. And now, no trace of the beast remained. Sunny groaned. Actually, he would have preferred it if some trace of his enemies had remained. The wolves seemed more like wraiths than actual beasts, which meant that eating their meat would have probably not been an option anyway, but what troubled him more was that there were no soul shards left in the wake of the 3 snow figures, either. They had probably drowned in lava, or possible you had been outright destroyed with the nightmare creatures. Sunny had never witnessed soul shards being destroyed with their hosts before, but then again, he had never witnessed such a battle either. The cataclysm summoned into existence by his sorcery had unleashed truly profane power, so there was no point to be surprised. He still felt despondent at the loss of 4 sacred soul shards, though. How regretful. Sunny allowed himself to feel disappointed for a while, then pushed his thoughts in a more productive direction. It was not like he had gained nothing from the battle, after all. The first benefit was quite obvious, it was that he was still alive. Kai and Slayer were also in one piece, and even the Shade of Abundance had not been destroyed completely, meaning that it would be able to participate in the next siege. The second benefit was the 3 jade figurines standing on the altar of the Shrine of Truth. They were the very reason Sunny had driven his companions all the way to the shrine. In the first place, by sacrificing them, they would be able to grow much stronger, and therefore much better suited to face the next battle, and every death game battle after that. And lastly, there was the third benefit as well. It was what Sunny had learned from his battle against the wolf. That one was an unexpected boon, and one he was most curious about. 2368 Wrong order. Sunny had made the decision to channel the essence of a concept opposite to that of the wolf in the spur of the moment. However, it had not been a baseless idea. Rather, he had come up with that countermeasure after coming to understand his enemy deeply. Learning the very essence of his enemies was one of the things he did best, after all, having shadowed countless humans and nightmare creatures in his life. Sunny had learned that skill while mastering the first step of Shadow Dance. In the beginning, it was all about glimpsing the secrets of his adversary's battle style, but just as Shadow Dance had outgrown the confines of merely being a combat technique, its purview had expanded greatly, as well. Sunny had long become capable of sensing the flow of essence through his enemies. But after fighting the wolf, he realized that he was also capable of sensing the adversary's will, not just its impact, but also its affinity. Understanding the nature of the wolf was one part reasonable deduction and one part being able to sense what its ferocious spirit truly was. It was strange. Sunny felt that he had stumbled onto something profound. Channeling the concept of the hunter had helped him survive the ferocious assault of the cursed demon. Possibly it was the very reason he had managed to survive until the volcano absorbed enough damage to produce a powerful enough explosion. And he did not delude himself into thinking that just anyone could have been able to accomplish the same. That last part was especially important. Nefis possessed a singularly powerful will, but her will was firm and indomitable. It was like a sword that refused to break and demanded that everything else break under its blade. Her uncompromising spirit strived to be absolute. Sunny's own will, however, was subtle and insidious. Nefis described it as a weapon that only knew how to kill, and there was certainly truth to her words, but that slaying weapon was flexible and versatile, willing to assume any form it needed to kill the enemy. Just like shadows were inherently formless, and therefore willing to assume any form. That was the reason why Sunny was uniquely positioned to channel any foreign concept, which meant that it was something that only he could do, or at least do so effectively. That ability suited him perfectly. So perfectly, in fact, that he wondered if he was meant to discover it. Not in the grand way of being fated or influenced into stumbling upon it, though, more so in the way of that ability being the next step on the path he had been walking all along. Was this the 6th step of Shadow Dance? I think it is. Sunny felt that it was, and that was why he was so bewildered. After all, he had not mastered the 5th step yet. How novel. This was the first time his understanding of Shadow Dance had become greater than his actual mastery of it. Before, he had always stumbled in the darkness, seeking epiphanies and revelations. Usually, the act of fathoming the secret of the next step meant mastering it. But this time, things were different. The 4th step of Shadow Dance allowed him to assume the shapes of his enemies. The 5th step was supposed to allow him to shadow their powers and attributes. As well, he had even discovered a way to master it by fusing with his shadows and augmenting those of his domain, humans and shades both. However, Sunny had never gone through the actual process of doing so. That was because by the time he learned the secret of the 5th step, his fate had already been lost, and his true name was gone. Without the true name to anchor his self, it was too dangerous to delve so deeply into the essence of other beings and assume their form. He could easily lose himself forever, forgetting how to return to his own form in body, mind, and soul. So, the 5th step of Shadow Dance remained beyond his reach. It had remained unreachable for so long, it seemed, that both Sunny and his enemies had grown in power greatly. And now, having failed to master it, Sunny was already discovering the secrets of the step after that. So, was what he had done in the battle against the wolf dangerous? Sunny felt bitterly reluctant to admit it, but he knew that it was. The absence of a true name was once again holding him back. Everything had gone smoothly this time, but that was only because the concept Sunny had channeled was not inherently foreign to his own spirit. It was the concept of the hunter, after all, and Sunny was himself a greatly accomplished hunter. But what if the concept he had to channel was completely alien to him? Would he be able to embody it? Sunny knew that he would, with enough practice. He knew how malleable everything about him was. But would he be able to return from channeling a concept that was in conflict with his own spirit? Sunny was not sure about that. What about channeling 100 concepts, each of them vastly different and in opposition to each other? Well, that sounded like a perfect way to fall into complete lunacy, and Sunny already had precious little sanity left. He was already afraid of losing himself, or at the very least his humanity, to the nature of being supreme. Or becoming something he despised on the path to apotheosis. This feels awful. Damn. Sunny felt like he had found a shiny weapon, only to discover that he was incapable of picking it up. Like he was denied something he was owed. He stayed nestled in the shadows, hidden in the darkness of the shrine of truth, unseen and motionless. His wounded soul was once again being ravaged by the scathing feeling of regret. If only he had chosen differently, if only he had not surrendered to his desperate wish, if only he had not betrayed his friends, and still possessed his true name. But Sunny knew that these thoughts were meaningless. There was no way to turn back time, and even if he could, regret would have been eating him alive all the same, just for a different reason. For a far worse reason. No matter how much he regretted what he did, it was better than regretting something that he had never dared to do. Which was not to say that he could not correct his mistake and be rid of all this regret altogether. All he had to do was make a choice and get his fate back. I've already killed a cursed demon, now killing a cursed terror did not seem so impossible anymore. But Sunny still had doubts. Sometime later, he emerged from the shadows and rubbed his face, chasing the uninvited thoughts away. He had no time to ponder these difficult matters now, because there were numerous enemies he had to kill. Right, on to the next point of the agenda. His gaze fell on the 3 jade figurines.